In moments when financial pressure weighs heavily on the heart, there is a reminder that heaven is not silent, and God has not forgotten those who call upon Him. Breakthrough does not begin in the bank account, it begins in the spirit. When the soul turns toward God with sincerity, trust, and expectation, His power begins to move in ways we cannot always see but can always depend on. Today, let your faith rise, because there are prayers that open doors, shift circumstances, and release provision exactly when it is needed most. The first prayer is the prayer of surrender. Nothing in life loosens the chains of financial fear like handing every concern back to the one who owns every resource in existence. When you say, "Lord, everything I have is yours," you're not losing control. You're placing your life in the safest hands possible. Surrender invites peace where anxiety used to reign. It shifts the atmosphere around you and aligns your decisions with God's wisdom instead of human panic. Many breakthroughs begin the very moment a believer stops wrestling and starts releasing. The second prayer is the prayer for divine wisdom. Financial breakthrough is rarely about chance, it is about direction. God gives strategies, clarity, and discernment to those who ask. Sometimes the miracle is not sudden money falling into your lap, but God showing you where to go, what to avoid, whom to trust, and how to steward what you already have. A wise decision can open a door that anxiety would have never allowed you to see. When you pray for wisdom, you position yourself to walk through opportunities that lead to increase, stability, and favor. The third prayer is the prayer of bold faith. This is the prayer that refuses to be intimidated by circumstances. It is the prayer that says, "Lord, I believe you can do what seems impossible." Bold faith activates supernatural provision. It invites God to move beyond limitations, beyond calculations, and beyond the natural order of things. Sometimes God waits for you to ask boldly before He responds powerfully. Faith is not denying the struggle. It is declaring that the struggle is not the final story. Let these prayers rise from your heart today. When surrender replaces fear, wisdom replaces confusion, and faith replaces worry, the path to breakthrough begins to unfold. God delights in blessing His people, and when you pray with a genuine heart, you invite His abundance, His peace, and His divine intervention into every area of your financial life. Here are 5 meaningful keynotes from the speech. Financial breakthrough begins in the spirit, not the bank account, and God responds when the heart turns toward Him with trust and expectation. The prayer of surrender releases fear and places every financial concern into God's hands, opening the way for peace and divine intervention. The prayer for divine wisdom guides decisions, reveals opportunities, and protects from financial pitfalls, leading to stability and increase. The prayer of bold faith invites God to work beyond limitations, believing that what seems impossible is still fully possible with Him. When surrender, wisdom, and faith work together, they create a path where God's provision, favor, and abundance can flow into every area of life. Financial breakthrough does not start with counting coins, balancing ledgers, or chasing every opportunity the world presents. It starts in the heart, in the spirit, in the quiet place where faith meets surrender. Many people approach financial challenges as if the solution lies solely in human effort, yet the truth is that God, who owns the wealth of the universe, has a role far greater than any earthly strategy. When you turn your heart toward Him with trust, expectation, and a willingness to obey, something begins to shift. The first step toward real financial breakthrough is understanding that God is the ultimate provider and that every step we take must be rooted in the recognition of His sovereignty. This recognition begins with trust. Trust is not a vague feeling or a fleeting hope. It is a deliberate choice to believe that God sees what we cannot, that He knows what we need before we even ask, and that His timing is perfect. In times of financial difficulty, it is easy to become consumed by worry. to measure our worth and security by what is visible in the bank account. But breakthrough comes when we stop relying on the visible and start relying on the invisible power of God. Trust allows us to walk forward confidently, knowing that the one who provides for the birds and clothes the lilies is more than able to provide for us. Expectation is the companion to trust. When you pray for financial breakthrough with expectation, you are affirming your belief that God is not only capable, but willing to act on your behalf. Expectation does not mean impatience or a sense of entitlement. Rather, it is the quiet assurance that God's promises are real, that His Word is alive, and that His plans for your life are for good. This kind of expectation fuels persistence in prayer and a steadfastness in faith, which are crucial elements in opening the door to supernatural provision. Turning to God in this way also requires humility and the willingness to align your desires with His purposes. Sometimes the prayers for financial breakthrough are answered not by immediate increase, but by correction, guidance, and the removal of obstacles that are unseen to us. By acknowledging that God knows what is best, we allow Him to shape our steps and direct our resources in ways that will bring long-term stability and favor. It is in the posture of humility that our prayers become more than requests. They become expressions of dependence on the one who can do exceedingly abundantly beyond what we can ask or imagine. Faith is the bridge between the spiritual and the material. When the heart trusts, expects, and humbles itself before God, faith activates His provision. It is faith that moves us to act wisely, to seize opportunities when they arise, and to persevere even when circumstances seem discouraging. Faith is not blind. It is informed by the promises of God and fueled by the assurance that financial breakthrough is part of His desire for His children. It allows us to approach challenges with a mindset that sees potential rather than limitation, possibility rather than impossibility. Finally, understanding that breakthrough begins in the Spirit reminds us that financial provision is often linked to the condition of the heart. God delights in blessing those whose hearts are aligned with His will, those who seek His kingdom first, and those who practice integrity, generosity, and stewardship. When the heart is right, when the spirit is aligned with God, doors begin to open that were previously closed. Opportunities arise, connections are made, and solutions appear in ways that cannot be explained by human effort alone. The journey toward financial breakthrough is, therefore, a journey of spiritual alignment, a cultivation of trust, expectation, humility, and faith that positions a person to receive God's abundant provision. The prayer of surrender is a powerful key to unlocking financial breakthrough because it shifts the focus from human effort to divine provision. Many people try to manage their finances through sheer willpower, careful planning, and endless strategizing. But no amount of human wisdom can replace the peace and provision that come when the heart fully surrenders to God. Surrender is more than simply asking God to bless your efforts. It is the conscious choice to release control over every aspect of life and acknowledge that He is the ultimate source of all blessings. When a person prays with a spirit of surrender, they are declaring that they trust God to handle what they cannot, and in that act of trust, a remarkable transformation begins. Surrender begins with honesty. It requires acknowledging our limitations, admitting that we cannot solve every problem on our own, and recognizing that worry and anxiety have no place in the life of faith. Financial stress often leads to sleepless nights, strained relationships, and a constant sense of pressure. By surrendering these burdens in prayer, a person exchanges anxiety for peace, uncertainty for divine assurance. It is in this honest acknowledgement of dependence on God that the heart becomes open to receive His guidance and His provision. When praying in surrender, one must also release personal agendas and timelines. God's timing is often different from our own, and He sees the bigger picture that we cannot. Sometimes the breakthrough we long for may not come immediately or in the way we expect. By surrendering control, we allow God to orchestrate circumstances for maximum benefit. This does not mean passivity or neglecting responsibility. Rather, it is active faith that trusts God to direct the path, open doors, and provide resources at the perfect moment. Surrender aligns our actions with His will, ensuring that every step we take is guided by divine wisdom rather than human anxiety. A surrendered heart also cultivates gratitude and contentment. When we recognize that God owns everything and that every blessing is ultimately from Him, our perspective on financial challenges changes. Instead of seeing lack, we begin to see potential. Instead of fearing loss, we trust in God's faithfulness. Gratitude in prayer invites God's favor and positions the believer to receive more than just material increase. It nurtures spiritual richness that strengthens resilience and wisdom in handling finances. Surrender in prayer is not a one-time act, but a continual practice. Every day presents opportunities to relinquish control, to choose trust over fear, and to invite God into every decision and circumstance. By doing so, the believer develops a consistent awareness of God's presence and provision. This consistent practice of surrender creates an environment where divine favor can flow freely, opportunities align with purpose, and guidance is clearly discerned. When a heart is fully surrendered, the natural response is obedience. God often asks for practical steps of faith alongside prayer, acts of stewardship, integrity in financial dealings, generosity to others, and wise management of resources. Surrender does not eliminate responsibility, it transforms it into a partnership where human effort is empowered and directed by God. Through this partnership, financial breakthrough becomes not only possible but inevitable as God's power is released in alignment with a heart that trusts, obeys, and acknowledges His ultimate authority. The prayer for divine wisdom is a cornerstone in achieving financial breakthrough because it provides clarity, discernment, and guidance in situations that often feel overwhelming. Financial challenges are rarely simple. They come with complexities, decisions, and choices that can determine the difference between progress and setback. Human understanding alone is limited and prone to error. But when a person earnestly seeks God's wisdom, they invite insight that surpasses logic, strategy, and conventional knowledge. This prayer acknowledges that true success is not merely about accumulation, but about making decisions that are aligned with God's will, purpose, and timing. Divine wisdom begins with humility, recognizing that we do not have all the answers and that even our best ideas may fall short. When you pray for wisdom, you admit your limitations and create space for God to provide direction that you may not have considered. This prayer is not about asking for a quick fix or an immediate influx of resources. It is about asking for understanding that leads to sustainable solutions, long-term stability, and the ability to navigate financial challenges with discernment. Wisdom helps distinguish between opportunities that are truly beneficial and those that could lead to unnecessary risk or loss. One of the greatest benefits of praying for divine wisdom is that it helps in decision-making. Financial breakthroughs often require choices about investments, career paths, business opportunities, or even daily spending. Without wisdom, decisions can be influenced by fear, impatience, or incomplete information, which can lead to setbacks. Praying for divine wisdom opens the mind to insight that guides choices, reveals hidden pitfalls, and uncovers paths that might otherwise remain invisible. It equips the believer to act confidently, knowing that their steps are directed by a higher understanding. Divine wisdom also encourages strategic thinking. It allows a person to see beyond immediate needs and consider the long-term implications of their actions. When seeking wisdom, one can discern which opportunities align with God's purpose, which relationships should be nurtured for growth, and where to exercise restraint or patience. This kind of guidance ensures that financial decisions are not only reactive but proactive, positioning the believer to benefit from God's favor in ways that extend far beyond short-term gain. Praying for wisdom also strengthens resilience during times of challenge. When difficulties arise, it is easy to panic or make hasty decisions out of desperation. Wisdom provides perspective, helping to see beyond temporary obstacles and maintain focus on the bigger picture. It cultivates patience, prudence, and discernment, allowing the believer to respond rather than react, to plan rather than rush, and to act with confidence rather than anxiety. Furthermore, divine wisdom influences relationships and opportunities connected to financial breakthrough. Knowing whom to trust, when to collaborate, and how to approach negotiations are all aspects of practical wisdom that can dramatically affect outcomes. Prayer for wisdom aligns a person's heart with God's guidance, ensuring that choices in partnerships, business deals, or financial decisions are made with insight and integrity. Ultimately, the prayer for divine wisdom transforms financial challenges into opportunities for growth and blessing. It connects the believer with God's insight, guiding every decision, action, and strategy. By seeking wisdom consistently, the believer positions themselves to walk the path of financial breakthrough with confidence, clarity, and alignment with God's purpose, ensuring that provision is not just temporary, but enduring and transformative. The prayer of bold faith is one of the most transformative prayers a person can offer when seeking financial breakthrough. Bold faith is not timid or hesitant. It is confident, courageous, and unwavering, even in the face of challenges that seem insurmountable. Many people experience financial struggles and respond with worry, doubt, or half-hearted effort. But bold faith changes the atmosphere. It is a declaration that God is able to do what humans cannot, that He can intervene in circumstances beyond calculation, and that His power can move mountains of debt, lack, or limitation. When someone prays with bold faith, they are stepping into a realm where miracles become possible and impossible situations begin to shift. Bold faith begins with belief. It is the conviction that God is not only willing but also able to act on your behalf. This belief is not passive. It requires action, perseverance, and trust that God's timing and methods are perfect. In financial matters, bold faith often manifests as taking steps that demonstrate trust in God's provision. It might be pursuing a new opportunity, investing in a venture with wisdom, or extending generosity even when resources seem limited. Every act of faith signals to God and to the Spirit that the believer is ready to receive His intervention and is willing to partner with Him in the process of breakthrough. Fear and doubt are common barriers to bold faith. When financial pressures mount, the natural tendency is to retreat into caution, worry, or indecision. Bold faith, however, confronts these fears directly. It refuses to be intimidated by the size of the debt, the complexity of the situation, or the scarcity of resources. Instead, it focuses on the character and promises of God. It declares that no obstacle is too great, no setback too significant, and no delay too long to prevent God's provision from arriving. By speaking and acting in faith, the believer creates spiritual momentum that aligns with divine power. Bold faith also requires persistence. Breakthrough is rarely instantaneous, and circumstances do not always change immediately. Praying with bold faith means continuing to trust and act even when results are not yet visible. It involves maintaining a confident heart and consistent prayer life, declaring God's promises over the situation, and refusing to surrender to despair. This persistence demonstrates a deep reliance on God's ability to deliver, showing that the believer's hope is anchored in Him rather than in temporary circumstances. Another dimension of bold faith is expectation. Faith that is bold carries with it the certainty that God will respond. Expectation transforms prayer from a simple request into a powerful declaration. It affirms that God is attentive, that He is aware of every need, and that He delights in providing for His children. This expectation is not rooted in entitlement, but in the trustworthiness of God's promises, and it propels the believer forward with confidence, courage, and clarity. Bold faith also influences the way opportunities are perceived and acted upon. It enables the believer to recognize doors that might otherwise be overlooked, to seize opportunities with discernment, and to act decisively in alignment with God's guidance. When paired with wisdom and surrender, bold faith amplifies the effect of prayer, ensuring that divine provision is activated in both timing and magnitude. Ultimately, the prayer of bold faith positions a person to experience financial breakthrough beyond natural expectation. It invites God to move in ways that exceed calculation, defy limitation, and create abundance where there once seemed to be scarcity. Bold faith turns prayers into declarations, fears into trust, and obstacles into stepping stones, allowing the supernatural power of God to manifest in every financial area of life. When surrender, wisdom, and faith work together, they create a powerful synergy that transforms the journey toward financial breakthrough. Each of these elements alone has incredible potential, but when combined, they form a spiritual framework that aligns the heart, mind, and actions with God's purposes. Surrender removes the barriers of fear and control, wisdom provides clarity and discernment, and bold faith activates God's supernatural provision. Together, they create a pathway where divine intervention can flow freely, ensuring that financial provision is not only possible, but sustainable, abundant, and transformative. The integration of surrender, wisdom, and faith begins with a heart fully yielded to God. Surrender ensures that every worry, desire, and plan is placed under His authority. When a person lets go of the need to control every aspect of their financial life, it allows God to move without restriction. This release does not mean inactivity. Rather, it creates space for divine direction, opening doors that might have been previously blocked by fear, doubt, or human limitations. Surrender prepares the heart to receive wisdom, ensuring that guidance is not ignored or overlooked, and primes the spirit to act with bold faith when opportunities arise. Wisdom, when applied in conjunction with surrender, becomes far more effective. It helps discern which paths to pursue, which decisions to make, and which risks to avoid. Financial breakthrough is often about more than just receiving. It is about making choices that honor God's principles, protect resources, and create long-term stability. Wisdom helps navigate the complexities of life, recognizing opportunities that align with purpose while steering clear of distractions and pitfalls. When a heart is surrendered, wisdom is no longer filtered through pride, fear, or selfish ambition. It becomes a direct channel for God's guidance and strategy. Faith completes the cycle by activating the promises of God. Bold faith moves the believer from a place of contemplation into action, turning prayers into declarations and opportunities into realities. Faith bridges the gap between the spiritual and the practical, transforming trust and wisdom into tangible results. When combined with surrender and wisdom, faith ensures that the believer does not merely hope for change, but steps confidently into the path of provision. It is the faith that persists in prayer, acts decisively when doors open, and remains steadfast even when circumstances appear contrary. This synergy also strengthens perseverance. Financial challenges are rarely resolved instantly, and setbacks can test resolve and determination. When surrender, wisdom, and faith work together, they create resilience. The believer is able to navigate obstacles with patience, make strategic decisions without panic, and act boldly without hesitation. This combination ensures that financial breakthroughs are not fleeting or accidental, but are the result of a deliberate, spiritually aligned journey. Generosity and stewardship are also amplified when these three principles are in harmony. Surrender opens the hand to give without fear. Wisdom guides how resources are managed and multiplied, and faith trusts that God will replenish and reward. This alignment creates a flow of provision that is both abundant and sustainable, allowing the believer to experience financial stability while also blessing others. Ultimately, the unity of surrender, wisdom, and faith positions a person to experience God's supernatural intervention in their finances. Each element reinforces the other, creating a cycle of trust, clarity, and action that transforms challenges into opportunities, scarcity into abundance, and worry into peace. When practiced consistently, this synergy ensures that financial breakthrough is not just a temporary relief, but a lasting testament to God's power, guidance, and provision in every area of life. In every moment of financial struggle, there is hope for breakthrough, and that hope is anchored in a heart fully devoted to God. When prayers rise from surrender, guided by wisdom, and fueled by bold faith, they create a spiritual force that no obstacle can withstand. God sees every need, knows every challenge, and delights in providing for those who trust Him wholeheartedly. He honors sincerity over strategies, alignment over effort, and faith over fear. Financial provision is not merely about wealth. It is about freedom, purpose, and the ability to fulfill the plans God has placed in your life. When you release control, seek His guidance, and act with unwavering confidence, you step into a path that invites His abundance, opens doors of opportunity, and establishes lasting stability. Every decision becomes clearer, every opportunity more visible, and every challenge more manageable when the heart is aligned with God's will. As you embrace surrender, wisdom, and faith, remember that God's timing is perfect, and His ways are higher than our ways. He is faithful to respond to prayers, to guide steps, and to provide for needs in ways that exceed imagination. Financial breakthroughs are not random. They are the result of a life fully committed to trusting Him, listening to His guidance, and walking boldly in obedience. Let this truth settle deeply in your heart. God is not limited by circumstances, scarcity, or human understanding. When you pray with a heart aligned to Him, He moves mountains, opens doors, and establishes favor in every area of your financial life. Trust Him, seek Him, and act with courage, for the God who provides is the same yesterday, today, and forever, ready to bless abundantly, guide wisely, and bring miraculous breakthrough. David, Jeremiah,